Well, Arkansas came up just short against Texas A&M, and Georgia nearly made an improbable comeback. We'll recap the SEC weekend and look at the Hogs. It's Tennessee and the Arkansas Razorbacks coming up this weekend. We got it all for you right here on Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into it, your Monday edition of Locked On Vols. I am your host, Eric Cain. Appreciate you guys for being here, making Locked On Vols a part of your morning routine. Can't thank you enough for doing that. Back after the bye week, and we're ready to roll. Tennessee and Arkansas coming up this weekend. You guys know how big of a deal that is. Get in your questions, comments, concerns for the mailbag portion of the show. That's coming up tomorrow, so send those in at _Cainer and at Locked On Vols. You can find me on Instagram as well. This show is presented by our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook, and today's episode, again, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. You can place your first $5 bet. You're going to get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to go ahead and get started today. So here in segment number one, we're going to look back on a wild weekend of SEC football. Of course, whenever Tennessee's not playing, you can sit back, watch, hang out a little bit. I got to watch some, not as much as I want, because, of course, if you're watching on YouTube right now, it looks like I am recording from just a blank canvas, right? There's nothing going on in terms of my studio, the gadgets and gizmos and all that. I am still in the process of moving in, so I had to make sure I got internet reception first, and then I will build the studio behind me as we go on a little bit. See, that's the thing about working from home, right? Like, it's very much a work in progress when you're on camera every day. So, but I still got to I got to watch some football. I got to watch the majority of the second half of Georgia and Alabama, which was the good half, obviously, because Georgia made that comeback. And was watching a little bit on the go and keeping up on my phone of Arkansas at Texas A&M. So recap that a little bit. True freshman report: who was played in games, how many games, and who's likely to redshirt coming up in segment 2. And then some more national comments about how Tennessee's not just a college football playoff contender, but a real national championship contender. All that and more here on a Monday show. So you look at Arkansas. Let's first and foremost focus on Arkansas. Of course, Tennessee's going to be at Arkansas. That game schedule came out, the official times, late Saturday night, in the waning moments of Georgia and Alabama. It was kind of that flex time in the offseason, either at whatever those flex time windows are, 3:30, 4:30, or 6:30 to 8:30 or whatever. And then last week, whenever they announced, because they do it a week ahead, the TV times, it was either going to be 7 or 7:30 Eastern time, either on ESPN or ABC. So they were trying to figure out what game they wanted to do, and they wanted to see kind of what games were, how they all played out on this past Saturday. So came out, Tennessee's going to kick off with Arkansas, 7:30 Eastern time. That game's going to be on ABC. All right, so I'm going to be getting into Fayetteville like at 1 o'clock local time on Friday, and I'm going to have a day and a half to take in all the scenery. You know what I'm saying? That's the beautiful thing about scheduling these trips weeks out in advance. But Arkansas is the main focus, and we'll get a lot of guests on this week. We'll dive into who the Razorbacks are, kind of what they look like, and all that and more as the week goes on. But just from a glance here, Arkansas comes up short 21-17 over Texas A&M. 3 turnovers in this football game really hurt Arkansas. You had an interception from Taylor Green. You had a couple fumbles on the ground. Arkansas was never able to get that run game going, and we kind of look at the SEC leaderboards, and we will again at some point this week, and kind of where Dylan Sampson ranks after the bye. But, Jaquindon Jackson's been that guy that he's been kind of jockeying with, and Jackson's played the majority of quarters of this season, where Dylan Sampson, of course, has played like 11 of the possible 16 to date. But Jaquindon Jackson did not have a very good day. 10 carries, 37 yards. He did have a touchdown. Overall, Arkansas as a team rushed for only 100 yards against Mike Elko's Texas A&M Aggies defense. And now, Elko's a really talented defensive coach, and Texas A&M was salty under him defensively, and that's kind of his MO, so I recognize that. But not a great day running the football for Arkansas on this one. Taylor Green, I think he's a pretty good ball player. Coming up from Boise State, listen, I'm not saying he's going to win the Heisman. I'm not saying he's going to be one of the top 3 or 4 best quarterbacks in the SEC, but he's going to be the most talented quarterback Tennessee's seen so far today. You thought that'd be Grayson McCall easily. That was not the case, at least when Tennessee played NC State. Chattanooga, Kent State are disqualifiers. Jackson, or not disqualifiers, but non-qualifiers. Jackson Arnold got benched in the second quarter against Tennessee. So Taylor Green, almost by default, is going to be the best quarterback Tennessee's seen so far, but he's got some skill to him, man. He can throw on the run a little bit. Pretty good decision maker overall. He's got a nice, I wouldn't call it a cannon, but he's got a really good arm. I think he throws an accurate football, 279, passing over 23 of 41 attempts in that football game. QBR is not the greatest. I don't think that was his best game, don't hear me wrong, but I think he's a pretty talented guy overall. And then the guy you're going to have to watch out for, and of course, if you watched any Arkansas this year and you watched the game the other day, is Isaac Tesla. Really good player. He had 120 yards on Saturday, 5 receptions and a touchdown, but he's the guy that Tennessee's really going to have to key in on. And of course, Jaquindon Jackson out of the backfield. They like to throw him the football for sure. But overall, it was a game where Arkansas led early, 14-7, I believe, at one point in the first quarter. A&M tied it up heading into halftime. I believe it was 14-all. It was a field goal for Arkansas in the third quarter where A&M countered with a touchdown. So A&M took its first lead of the football game in the third quarter, or in the fourth quarter, excuse me. It was scoreless in the third quarter. And so not a whole lot of offense for the Razorbacks in that second half. So 21-17 was that final. And of course, we're going to get you set. We're going to learn everything there is to learn about Arkansas this week, so hang tight for that one on the road. The game that everybody is talking about here on a Monday morning, the game that stole the college football spotlight. Bad phrasing. It was the college football spotlight this weekend. It didn't steal nothing, but I mean, Alabama, goodness gracious, went up 28-0 in the first quarter. Scored 28-0 in the second quarter. Scored on its first 4 possessions, I believe. At one point in time, Alabama led 30-7 going into the halftime break, and then it was Georgia. With talented football rosters, you can never count them out, right? Georgia just kept chipping away. Arian Smith found the end zone. The 2-point conversion was good. Went from 7 to 15. So on that first touchdown drive of the second half for Georgia at the 5:06 mark of the third quarter, it cut the lead in half with a TD and a 2-point conversion at 30-15. Alabama immediately answered with a field goal, 33-15, and then it was Georgia that went on a little bit of a run here. It scored, like 16, 17 unanswered points, I believe. Lawson Lucky, really talented tight end. Georgia's always got a talented tight end. He hauled in an 8-yard pass, 33-21. Dylan Bell, we remember that name because he went off against Tennessee a season ago, 33-28. Getting it in there. Dylan Bell again, 60-yard touchdown reception. Georgia takes the lead with 2:31 left in the football game, and it's a team that was down 28-0, a team that was down 30-7 at the halftime break, and Georgia, with 2:31 left on the clock, led 34-33. But what does Alabama do? Immediately answers back. It was a one-play, 75-yard drive that went to the 17-year-old. Did you know that he was 17 years old? That'd be Ryan Williams. It's the joke because if you watch the broadcast, they said it a million times. 75 yards from Jalen Milroe, and that was the final nail in the coffin there. Alabama retook the lead, held on to win 41-34. Just a really good game. Really good comeback to watch. Really good finish, of course. If you're a football fan, there's a lot to like about that football game. Jalen Milroe, when he is on, I've said this repeatedly, when he is on, I'm not sure that there's many better in college football than Jalen Milroe when he's on. Now, when he's off, when he gets flustered a little bit, when he gets rattled, that's a different story, but that's few and far between. I mean, Jalen Milroe, he's a good player. He's a really good player. Was fantastic the other night. 27-33, 374, 2 TDs and 1 interception. Carson Beck playing comeback, had to throw it 50 times in this football game. He was 27-50, 3 tutties, 3 interceptions, however. Georgia couldn't run the football in this game. Overall, Georgia, let's see here. That's something to keep in mind for Alabama game coming up in a couple of weeks now. Georgia only had 80 yards rushing in this football game. 519 yards of total offense, only 80 yards rushing for the Bulldogs. Again, playing from behind from the get-go, so that has a little bit to do with the play calling there as well. Alabama, 547 yards of total offense. So that was a great game. Tennessee's got to play both these teams. I thought it was a really, really good game to showcase a lot of what these two teams do. There's some weaknesses on both teams, don't hear me wrong, but I mean, they're both beatable. And I think it's going to be great football games between the two of these teams, Tennessee and Georgia, later on in November, and Tennessee and Alabama coming up here in just a couple of weeks. So that was a fantastic game. And we knew that someone was going to lose that football game. Okay, we knew someone was going to lose that game, so that doesn't really change what I'm about to say. But the fact that Kentucky upset Ole Miss, boys and girls, Tennessee goes 10-2. Say Tennessee loses to Alabama. excuse me, say Tennessee loses to Georgia, but Tennessee runs the table the rest of the way, I mean, you're in, okay? Because a 10-2 Tennessee over an 11-1 Ole Miss, I don't know what the rest is on that schedule. I'm not going to look at it. Or 10-2 Ole Miss or 11-1 Ole Miss with a loss to Kentucky? Come on now. That's going to be Tennessee. We'll see what Missouri does. But Missouri had to win in double overtime against Vanderbilt a week ago. So Tennessee just needs to continue doing what it's doing, and the rest will take care of itself. And again, we keep saying 10-2, right? If that's what's going to happen, this team could very well be 12-0 or 11-1. Okay, don't hear me wrong here. I'm just saying, if you're 10-2 with losses to Georgia and Alabama, thanks to the loss from Ole Miss to Kentucky, you're sitting in good position, and that's kind of what we already thought, heading into the season. But just seeing it all play out kind of reaffirms that that hypothesis, if you will. So, what a game for Georgia and Alabama. I mentioned Ole Miss and Kentucky, that upset, and boy, oh boy, give credit to Kentucky's defense, man. After that first drive, Kentucky's defense came to play. They dominated the line of scrimmage. I don't think Ole Miss is good up front on either side. They got some players, don't get me wrong, on the defensive front especially, but up front offensively, I don't think it's very good. LSU cruised. You had Texas cruising in its first SEC game. Arch Manning, hello. Arch Manning looks good. Just a casual 25 of 31, 324 and 2 tutties. Goodness gracious. How about Arch Manning, right? And then Auburn, little pick six. Peyton Thorne had a good game. Up until that pick six, right? Oh my goodness, he threw for like over 300 yards. He had 338 yards. He was 21 to 32, 3 touchdowns, but 1 interception, and it was the difference. And Oklahoma picked that off, ran it back in for the score, winning 27-21, a late fourth quarter score. I think they tacked on a field goal after that. It was 24-21, then 27-24. So, hey, you want, as a Tennessee fan, you want Oklahoma to continue to win, right? You want Oklahoma to continue to win and find ways to win, because that makes that win on the road in Norman that much more impressive. So, really, really fun college football weekend. I wish I could have sat back and watched games all day long. I can only watch games whenever I wasn't moving stuff, but I hope you guys enjoyed that for sure. Hey, when we come back, we will continue to get in here and look at, from a Tennessee perspective, true freshman tracker. Who's played in how many games and who's likely to redshirt? That is coming up next as we continue on here with the Monday edition of Locked On Vols. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. It is America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, and you can check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you're placing your bets. So you can get started all with this. $200 in bonus bets, that's guaranteed. $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's over at FanDuel, FanDuel.com. That's at FanDuel.com. Sorry, I'm stuttering here. FanDuel.com. That's over at FanDuel.com. $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Plus, that's NFL Sundays. We know we have a whole lot of fun on Saturdays. I put some coin in the pocket there from looking at that Alabama-Georgia game, the over, hello. And you can this weekend with Tennessee taking on Arkansas as well. Futures for Heisman odds and so much more for Nico. All that and more is over at FanDuel Sportsbook. So check it all out, FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. All that and more at America's #1 sportsbook, where you can make every moment more. That is FanDuel Sportsbook. Hey guys, welcome back into your Monday edition of Locked On Vols. Can't thank you enough for being here, making Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch. Don't forget, everydayers, tomorrow is your show. So send in those questions, comments, concerns at _Cain at Locked On Vols. Find me on Instagram. You can also comment on the YouTube channel as well. Really, really do appreciate you guys for doing that. Okay, so first and foremost, before I get back into the programming of the show here, I want to give my thoughts and prayers, my sympathies, my best wishes to all those affected by the hurricane, this weekend. Man, it tore apart, the Tampa area down there and in Florida. And then, of course, it made its way up the United States. And, of course, Western North Carolina, East Tennessee, right here where we are, guys. Devastation. You got people stranded, no cell service, no power, running out of food and water. You've got houses being picked up off its foundation and swept away because of flooding. The worst flooding in the Asheville area, Western North Carolina, and parts of East Tennessee. They're calling it a once in a lifetime occurrence. Downtown Newport had to be evacuated. I mean, I grew up in Jefferson County. That's a neighboring county, right? I mean, I went to Newport all the time, playing sports growing up, and I covered some games at Newport when I was first starting out in this industry. Great people. So, again, I know people always say this after something like this happens, but I don't know what else to say. Just continued thoughts and prayers. We're rooting for you. We're thinking about you. We're all in this together. Here in Knoxville, it wasn't that bad. I mean, the wind, the gusts were outrageous. Don't get me wrong. The flooding in parts of areas and everything. There were some people without power. Don't hear me wrong, but really thinking about all those affected by the hurricane here on a Monday morning, all across the southeast, and especially here in East Tennessee and Western North Carolina, Hamilton County, Cott County, Asheville, parts of Jefferson where I grew up. Really, really hope you guys know you guys will rebuild, but hope it is at an accelerated pace for sure. So thoughts and prayers with you guys. All right, let's get back into it. True freshman report, tracking Tennessee's true freshmen, the games they played in, how many they played in, all that and more. Matt Ray actually kind of put this up over at volquest.com. So a lot of this legwork was from him. I want to give him credit, but always like to kind of track the true freshmen through the midway point of the season. Clearly this isn't the midway point of the season, but it's coming off a first bye week. It's a third of the way through. So a lot of these freshmen are on track to not be redshirted, and some will be. And it's no surprise kind of which ones are who, right? You got Caleb Beasley. We'll kind of go work through these, not necessarily in alphabetical order, but we'll work through these kind of by position. Caleb Beasley, true freshman, cornerback, defensive back from Lipscomb Academy. He's played in 4 games. He's a special teams guy. He's played a little bit of defense and blowouts, but he won't be redshirted. Boo Carter, of course, played in 4 games. He's not going to be redshirted. He's a main contributor on this defense. Idris Farouk, man, I like me some Idris Farouk. I'll talk about him in a moment here in a couple minutes. But he's played in 4 games. He's played a little bit of defense, but primarily on special teams, so he's not going to be redshirted. Defensive back Colin Brazel, who is Chris Brazel's brother, he's played in 2 games, so that might be one to watch. It's probably one of those that's going to be redshirted. The 2 games he played in, I would assume, were Chattanooga and Kent State. So we'll watch about him to see if he reaches that 4-game plateau. Remember, you can play in 4 games plus the bowl game and maintain your red shirt. It's very, very different from when I played college football. Again, not at this level, but the redshirt rule was universal, okay? Very, very different from whenever I was playing football. Carson Gentle's played in 2 games. Those were both blowouts. He's probably going to be a redshirt. Same with Gage Ginther. 2 games, both blowouts, probably going to be redshirt. Marcus Gorey, a defensive back, again from Bradley Central, much like Boo Carter. He's played in 2 games. Both of those were, I would assume, the UTC game and Kent State game, but he's a guy that can be a special teams player. So, it looks like right now he's on track to redshirt, but very well could be thrown into the mix on special teams due to shuffling some bodies or some injuries or some sort. So we'll watch about Marcus Gorey. Tight end Cole Harrison, 2 games. He'll probably redshirt. Peyton Lewis has played in 4 games. He won't redshirt. He'll play special teams, and they'll try to get him a little bit of work at running back when they can. So far, really, really like what I saw from him against Kent State. Ryan Scott, Knox West, what's up? Covered a lot of the games that he played on Rivalry Thursday. He's played in 3 games, and he's also a guy that can play special teams. So I would assume that he's probably not going to redshirt, but he's not to that 4-game threshold yet, so it's still possible. Kellen Lindstrom, 2 games. He's going to redshirt. Let's see here. Jake Merklinger, 2 games. In a perfect world, he would definitely redshirt. The quarterback, of course. Jesse Perry, 2 games. And he's going to redshirt because you saw this, right? You saw him play. Jesse Perry, who I think, unless he's forced into action because Tennessee's so thin at offensive tackle, which very well could be a situation, right? Because, we saw that against Oklahoma. And Jesse Perry, I think, was going to be the next guy up behind Dane Davis and Larry Johnson. And my point, and I think that at points in times maybe he could play with those guys. He's coming along, but they want to redshirt him if possible because, and you saw that, right? He played in Chattanooga, but in the NC State game when Tennessee got up by a lot, instead of throwing in Bennett Warren, who we'll get to in a moment, instead of throwing in Jesse Perry on the offensive line, they played Larry Johnson. They played Brian Grant out at tackle instead of guard, right? So they were trying to preserve that redshirt. So you saw that writing on the wall against NC State whenever Jesse Perry didn't play in that football game. Jordan Ross has played in 3 games so far. I do not believe that he will redshirt. I think they'll do everything they can just to continue to work him in and do a little special teams. William Satterwhite is your backup center. So if Tennessee goes, he's played in 3 games already. If Tennessee goes the rest of the way and has no need for him, or at least he plays in 1 game, if he makes 1 more appearance throughout the rest of the regular season and Tennessee has no need for him, then yeah, they'll slap the redshirt tag on him. But he is the backup center. When Tennessee is blowing out a team, he will go in with the second-team offensive line, so I doubt he'll redshirt. Jeremiah Hurd has played in 1 game. He'll redshirt. Bennett Warren has played in 2 games, much like Jesse Perry. That conversation, the offensive tackle, he'll redshirt. Big week for both Jesse Perry and Bennett Warren on the offensive line. I think they had a really, a good week of work, and that's what was needed during the bye week for a position that was, not very doesn't have a whole lot of depth. Edwin Spillman, linebacker, he missed the first couple of weeks of the season, so he's played the last 2 weeks. He won't redshirt. He'll play on special teams, and he'll get a little bit of run on defense. He's already gotten a little bit of run on defense. Braylon Harmon, what's up, Knox Catholic? He's played in 1 game. He'll probably redshirt. Mike Matthews played in 2 games. Of course, he's missed the first 2 weeks of the season. He won't redshirt. They'll try to cycle him in there at wide receiver a little bit as the season goes on for sure. He made some plays. And then Braylon Staley's played in 1 game. Much like Mike Matthews, he missed the first couple weeks of the season. So we'll watch Braylon Staley. He's only played in 1 game. I don't think that they're going to try to redshirt him, but since he missed the first 3 weeks of the season, or the first 3 out of the first 4 games, maybe they will. Maybe that makes more sense. So we'll have to kind of pay attention to that. So those are Tennessee's true freshmen, how many games they played, and my best guess on if they're going to redshirt or not going to redshirt. Boo Carter continues to look really, really good. I think that as he continues to play more and gets more confidence in the scheme, he's just got that playmaking ability that everybody wants in a defensive back. Mike Matthews, man, when he finally jumped onto the scene against Kent State, he looked really good, and Tennessee made a point to get him involved. I thought that was awesome. Mike Matthews potentially could be stealing some snaps away. I mean, it's that it's that outside wide receiver opposite of Brew McCoy that's a question right now. And I say a question because there's no true starter. But in my opinion, that doesn't really matter because they play so many guys at wide receiver, or at least they have been. And I phrased it as that because, like, when you're counting receivers, it's 1 outside, 2 outside, 3 in the slot. So, like, if I said they don't have that true number 2 receiver, everybody would probably be like, well, they got Squirrel White. Yes, Squirrel White is your starter in the slot. Brew McCoy is your starter on one side. And then we've seen a couple of different guys. It's been Chris Brazzell. It's been Chaz Nimrod. It can be Dante Thornton, the big play threat. It can be Mike Matthews. I'm interested to see if they want to switch some guys around. Chaz, of course, can play the slot. Mike Matthews is an outside receiver. I continue to see people talking about how they want to see him in the slot, and unless I've missed something, and of course we're not at practice right now, so very well could, and I know that they're kind of interchangeable. Mike Matthews is more of an outside guy, not a slot. But I'll be intrigued to see kind of how they work him in because I think he deserves to play. He's a really, really good player. Let's see here. I like Peyton Lewis. I'll kind of end on this. Peyton Lewis and Idris Farouk, both those guys, limited times, but when they played, I think they've kind of shown who they are. Peyton Lewis is just kind of buried right now because you got Dylan Sampson, you got Deshaun Bishop, doing a great job, and Cam Seldon, when healthy, he's ahead of Peyton Lewis, but man, I think Peyton Lewis is going to be a good one. I really like what I saw against him against Kent State. Very powerful runner. And then Idris Farouk, man, he just comes in and hits. Who doesn't like that? He just kind of comes in and lays that lumber. And you need to continue to develop depth at safety because I don't think they're going to play Brooks and Turrentine 70 snaps a game. They're going to play Jacoby Thomas. They're going to play Christian Charles as they did last week against Oklahoma. Even though he's got a bum shoulder. They're going to play a little bit of Idris Farouk if they can and some John Slaughter. So been really impressed with Tennessee's true freshman class. I have indeed, and that's kind of where they stand in terms of the tracker, who will redshirt and who will not. Hey, when we come back, some national talking heads continue to praise Tennessee and say not only is Tennessee a college football playoff contender, it's a national championship caliber football team. That's coming up next. Who said that? I'll tell you here on the other side when we return here on Locked On Vols. Hey, I want to tell you about our friends over at Game Time. Game Time is an app to where you can buy tickets to events in your area. Well, what type of events? Well, of course, sporting events, college football at Neyland Stadium, baseball at Lindsey Nelson in the spring, basketball at the Food City Center, Thompson Bowling Arena. You can buy tickets to watch your Tennessee Volunteers play on the Game Time app, but also those concerts at Neyland Stadium. There was a big one last weekend, and thankfully it was last weekend before all this rain got in here, right? There's monster trucks rallies over at Thompson Bowling Arena. There's horse racing sometimes. There's stuff at the Bijou Theater, the Tennessee Theater, the Tennessee Smokies. Their season's wrapped up in Kodak, but they're going to be playing downtown, of course, in that new ballpark this spring. You can buy tickets to all of those events on the Game Time app. And the Game Time's pushing this thing called Game Time Picks. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Also, they have the lowest price guarantee, which Game Time is going to credit you 110% of the difference if you find a cheaper ticket somewhere else in the same section. They have the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. All this on the Game Time app. So go check it out today. You can download the Game Time app or go to gametime.co, but download this app, Game Time app, create an account, put in the promo code LOCKEDONCollege, get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create that account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Hey guys, welcome back into your Monday edition of Locked On Vols. I'm your host, Eric Cain. Tennessee and Arkansas getting back into it, right? It's nice to have an off week. Sure, I surely needed it, as you can see, moving homes. But goodness gracious, it was weird last week not having my normal week of football. I was in a nice groove, and I'm going to have to get back in that groove, but I can't wait to do it. Heading out Friday at some point. Don't know what time my flight is, but going to Fayetteville, so really, really looking forward to that. Okay, I'm here to end this show. I know we've only got a couple of minutes because I went overboard in segments 1 and 2, but I did want to kind of drop in some quotes here from a guy that I absolutely despise, but I'd be silly to say he doesn't know football. Do I think that if he came in and tried to coach now, he'd be an absolute disaster? And do I like making fun of my Florida fans who continue to clamor for him? Absolutely. Urban Meyer is who I'm talking about. He's a scum of a human being, in my opinion. Okay, I think he's an awful human being. I always have, and I will never back down from that. Let's look at his track record, okay? That's what this is about, okay? Calm down, Eric. Let's calm down. But do I like to make fun of Florida fans who say, we need Urban, Lane or Urban? Could you imagine? Okay, first of all, he was an absolute disaster the last time he tried to coach. Of course, it was the National Football League. Didn't even make it a season. He was pathetic. With name, image, and likeness, with the transfer portal, with everything that's going on in college football right now, Urban Meyer would fail so hard. So, in fact, hey, Florida fans, you want Urban Meyer to come back and coach? Take him. He will fail, and it'll be hilarious. Anyway, okay, sorry about that, guys. Let me calm down. Having said all that, boy, Urban Meyer knows football, okay? He knows football. And when he says something, you listen when it's football-related and only football-related. He was on the Big Noon Kickoff this week, of course, prior to this slate of football games, and he's got. It was Big Noon Kickoff, and this comment specifically was on the triple option. So let me read this off here. But this was prior to last week's game or this past weekend's games. He is big on Tennessee. Okay, listen to what he had to say. Quote: "I've got Georgia still up there. I've got them, Tennessee, in the SEC championship game." He goes on to say, "I've got inside information there. I ask every week. I have an NFL guy that scouts around and helps me with some stuff." And he's commented, "It looks like Tennessee of old. That's the respect I had for the old Tennessee outfit." He goes on to say, "I know Nico Iamaleava, the quarterback. We all love him. I think he's certainly a Heisman Trophy candidate. I think he's a top 10 pick. He's got to do a couple of things a little bit better, but he went into Norman, Oklahoma. He had a good day. But you're at Oklahoma and you find a way to win that football game." He goes on to say, I guess this was after the Big Noon Kickoff. "As I said on Big Noon, I'm going to say it every single week. Iamaleava is not the only show in Knoxville. They are balanced on offense. They've got a good running game. They're good in the trenches. They're very good on defense. Obviously, we're going to find out. They're jumping into the rest of the SEC coming up here, but there's no doubt I have them as number 4, potentially number 3 team in the country right now." That is from Urban Meyer. And again, I can't stress this enough. When he talks football, you listen. Anything else? Let's get advice from somebody else. But I thought I'd bring that onto the show, and I figured you guys would get a kick out of my disdain for Urban Meyer. Another guy that I have no issue with, he did play at Georgia, but I have no issue with him, David Pollack. Big time on Tennessee. David Pollack, Tennessee is 100% a national championship contender. This is what he had to say on Always College Football with former Alabama quarterback and ESPN personality Greg McElroy. David Pollack says this: 100% they're a national championship contender. And if you look at the rest of their schedule outside of Georgia, which is not easy, and hosting Alabama, so that would be the 2 highest ranked teams, they're going to be guaranteed to win. And it's tough to say that because you just saw Georgia, Kentucky, but with the offense and with their defense, they're going to have very few off days together. Man, I couldn't agree with more of that, right? I mean, say the defense has a tough day, and that's probably going to happen. It's college football 2024. I got faith the offense and Nico Iamaleava and Dylan Sampson and everybody else going to pick that up. You know, look at Tennessee's defense. And it wasn't like Tennessee struggled against Oklahoma, still ran the football, found that running game eventually. And there's still some explosive plays, but it wasn't 500 yards total offense, Tennessee, right? The defense was just incredible, and Tennessee tailored its game plan to its defense because it had a lead on the road. That's good coaching, and that just goes on to show you how good Tennessee's defense is. Pollack goes on to say, their defense is legit. You talk about that defensive line, Greg. I remember watching the NC State game, and 55, which is Omar Norman-Lott, comes in. Holy cow. It's not just guys to rotate in that are big bodies. You're talking about 300-pounders with twitch. 21, Amari Thomas. 20, Bryson Eason. They're just like golly. This is really impressive, Pollack said. I didn't have any concerns about the front. Their secondary, is there a team that can stay balanced enough to make plays in the back end? ? He goes on to say, I'm pumped up about Nico Iamaleava as much as anybody. I'm watching this Iowa game and watching his first game. The dude is sensational. He's a Heisman Trophy type good. He wasn't great against NC State. He wasn't great against Oklahoma. We haven't even seen the best version of him, but I think we're going to see that down the road. I think that's scary, Pollack explained. So I'm going to read one more quote from him, then we're going to call it quits on this show. Can he continue to grow before they get to Alabama game and Georgia game, Pollack asked, because he's been okay. He wasn't great against Oklahoma. They made some big plays. He's had some big throws down the field. I thought he could have really blown out the game and made things wide open, go things away quickly. So I don't question who they are as a team, and they're going to be a great team, but can they beat Bama and Georgia? That's what they're tasked to do down the stretch. So David Pollack thinks Tennessee is 100% a national championship contender. And I can agree with him. I don't think Nico was bad against NC State. I don't think Nico was worse against NC State than he was against Georgia or Oklahoma. But I don't think he was bad in either game. I think he had the 2 turnovers, and we've talked about those 2 turnovers against NC State, but he did a lot against NC State, especially with his legs. Oklahoma, he had 2 turnovers, but offensive tackle and running backs kind of held him out to dry. He still made explosives. But I think we can all agree, boy, there's another gear for him to hit. And when that other gear hits, watch out. Tennessee football is, as David Pollack would say, 100% a national championship contender. All right, that is going to do it here for this edition of Locked On Vols. Can't thank you enough for being here. Thank you to everydayers for starting your Monday, your work week off with us here on Locked On Vols. Send in your questions, your comments, your concerns. I want to hear them. I'll take those on Monday, and I'll record, I guess, today later on for Tuesday's show, and I'll try to work in as many as I can. Again, continued thoughts and prayers for everybody affected by the hurricane. East Tennessee, West Virginia, parts of Florida, western North Carolina, the Asheville area. Everybody affected. Continued thoughts and prayers, and let's move past this for sure. Glad that we're back in here and looking ahead to Tennessee and Arkansas. We'll have you every single step of the way right here on Locked On Vols. Thank you guys so much. Until next time, this is Locked On Vols.